Good evening, everyone. I'm Jason Slater, your guest host for this evening's edition of Higher Ed Live. During the day, I'm the Associate Director of Web Communications at Union College. I'm also the Project Manager for Unfiltered, Union's own student blogging initiative. It's great to be here tonight, and I'd like to thank Mallory Wood from M. Stoner and Higher Ed Live for the opportunity. Please be sure to follow our conversation on Twitter at Higher Ed Live, and you can follow me at Jason W. Slater. Tonight's show is all about blogging content strategy. We're going to discuss how to choose bloggers, distinguishing between separate and multi-authored blogs, promoting this new content via your established channels, social content support, guiding student content production, and strategies to encourage comments and discussion. The inspiration for this show was the transition Union College went through from many different blogs to a single multi-authored blog, with some support from Mallory Wood's article, Content Strategy, Indiana University Lets Students Tell the Story, about Jay Steele's approach to blogging at weareiu.com. And Jay is with us tonight to share his insights. But first, a word from our Higher Ed Live sponsors for tonight's show. OmniUpdate. OmniUpdate is the leading web content management system provider for higher education. The company's web CMS, OU Campus, is secure and scalable with great tools and features, deployment flexibility, and an awesome user community. In fact, it was the highest ranked CMS in customer satisfaction in a 2010 .edu Guru survey. So if you need a CMS, check it out at www.omniupdate.com. Higher Ed Live is sponsored by Integral, the creators of the Schools app, a private Facebook community to boost enrollment and retention. Check out their blog, Integral Insights, for posts on admissions marketing, student engagement, and social media in higher education. We're tweeting the link to the blog now. But back to the show. With us tonight are Jay Steele, Data Manager in the Office of Enrollment Management at Indiana University, and Tim Nekritz, Associate Director of Public Affairs and Director of Web Communications at SUNY Oswego. Tim launched and directs Oswego's student blogging project, which is now in its 5th year. It has evolved from what I did this week journaling to become more strategic, niche-oriented, and multimedia in presentation. And Jay is the project lead for weareiu.com. He designed the site, the concept for the site, developed the implementation strategy, and collaborated with Compendium, the vendor, on the design and development of the site itself. weareiu.com celebrated its 1-year anniversary this month. To date, over 175 students and alumni have shared over 1,100 stories on the site. So we're going to get started, and the most important question probably is, how do you find your authors? They are your content creators, so it's really critical that you find that piece of the puzzle. Otherwise, you just have an empty blog. So we're going to start with Tim. Tim, how did you find your bloggers?
Well, it's really a lot of prospecting with a lot of different avenues. I'd like to say it's all purposeful and we know what we're doing, but sometimes it's luck. A lot of it's networking and trying to find, can you tell me someone who's really a good student athlete? Can you tell me someone who's really involved in campus organizations? Although we've evolved a lot more now, we were blessed to get a little bit of work study funding. So I actually worked with our student employment office, which is right down the hall from us, and I said, well, I want some really good people who can do some good storytelling and from a lot of different backgrounds. And those ones actually asked as reporters. They kind of have beats, like an arts and entertainment beat. One is like the technology beat, kind of. One is more actually one of them who's my intern is like the sports and rec beat. So it's kind of like, let's look at all these different aspects. But then all the other ones will come to me directly with interest in blogging. The biggest, our most popular blog right now is by Alyssa Levenberg, who's a freshman, called Alyssa Explains It All, and she actually tweeted at SUNY Oswego on Twitter and said, hey, if you need someone to make videos, I'm your girl. And so she's actually been doing videos probably for quite a few years of just talking to the camera type video blogs, and I saw her stuff. I knew she was good, and talked to her a little bit about the project, and we figured that she could be really good as someone who talks about transition in college, since we know that that's a big concern that students have. And so eventually became Alyssa Explains It All, and Nickelodeon hasn't sued us yet, which is good. But so she's been really good. And then the most recent edition, we actually did some feedback from incoming students, because we have some incoming student communities. We asked them to ask us questions, and she responded to them. So popular so far, there have been 2 episodes, and there's going to be a 3rd one coming out. And then also Kwame Bell, who is a longtime blogger of mine, came to me. He actually came to our blogs because he said, I learn more from the blogs than I do from the rest of the website, which was, I couldn't figure out if that was good or bad, but I took it as it was. And most recently, last semester, he did Kwame Bell's Bucket List, which was a list of things to do in Oswego and on campus before you graduate. And Oswego is a city of about 17,000 people, so a lot of people, especially those from New York City or Long Island, they always ask the question, what's there to do in and around Oswego? And Kwame is answering that question, and he's been doing it in a very entertaining manner.
That's awesome. And so you're just really blessed to have gotten some really engaged students who are willing to volunteer their time and put their face out there in a really public way.
Well, absolutely. One of the things we're fortunate about is we've got a really good school of communication here. So at first, when I was doing when I started it 5 years ago, it was more like a day in the life. Oh, and this is what I did today, this is what I did this week, which was okay, but then they were like, well, I don't know what to talk about, and that type of thing. I'd really have to keep after them. Now it's almost, they're a lot more self-starters, and then the ones who are on work study, obviously they have some monetary motivation, but I mean this year has been so much better than I ever dreamed that I've been very, very happy.
That's great. So Jay, what about you? Where are you getting your bloggers for weareiu.com?
Well, we got started a little over a year ago, and we really wanted weareiu.com to be an added value project. So we didn't want to be taking away from the existing resources we have in our other recruiting departments. We have a number of students that work in scholarship and first-year experience and admissions, but they were pretty much their resources were fully allocated. So what we looked at doing is we just simply sent an email out to all the currently enrolled undergrads to see what kind of response we would get. Our hopes and dreams were we would get about 10 to 12 students that we would be able to have act as regular contributors to the site. And we were really shocked and surprised that within a day or two we had almost 200 students reply. We actually thought about whittling that down, but we talked to our vendor because their platform works out pretty well for being able to get scaled up like that. And so almost all those students who applied, we gave them the opportunity to be regular contributors, which basically meant that they were committing to posting at least 1 story a month. And we did some training with them initially. We did some face-to-face training. It wasn't required for them to attend. But over half of them showed up at the training sessions that we did. So that's really what we did to get it kick-started. Those students did a phenomenal job of really embracing what weareiu.com is all about. And then this school year, when we got started in the fall, we have an annual student involvement fair. It's outside. It's centrally located on campus. And we had the current student bloggers for weareiu.com. They all had weareiu.com t-shirts on, and they worked there. And that's in essence how we recruited the base of students for this current school year. And then one other thing we have is we actually have a link on the website. If somebody wants to be a contributor to the site, there's a form on there that they can fill out. And probably about 25% of the students that we have blogging right now came from that form on the site. So that's pretty much how we're getting our authors. We have one student who is on a work scholarship, and she's the only one that's getting quote unquote paid. Her obligation is to put in about 8 hours a week, and she posts 2 stories every week for us.
That's incredible to get that much free engagement and content. At Union, we took a little bit of a different approach. Most of ours are paid work study, so it's not really impacting our budget, but they are compensated for their time. And what I do is for only a few of their hours, maybe 2 hours a week, I have them in the office so I can engage them one-on-one. But otherwise, it's just up to them outside of the office to contribute their content. And our first year, we got this up and running. I was looking through the pool of applications and wound up with 90% females. So this year, I definitely wanted to balance that out, definitely get a gender balance and get better diversity balance. So we're up to about 12 blogs right now, but it's tough because blogging isn't necessarily a skill you'll typically find on a work study application. So I wanted to get a balance, and it took me about 2 years to get a good crop of contributors, but they primarily are paid. We've got a few volunteers, but they don't contribute nearly as much as the ones that are paid and that come into the office regularly and blog here and write stuff here. So next big question, you've got your authors, you've got your platform. How do you get eyeballs there? How are you directing traffic to this destination? Because you just create it out of nowhere. Obviously people have to be informed about it. So are you using the web? Are you using social media? Are you using emails? Are you using all of them? And let's go to you. Let's go to you, Tim.
Well, social and the web both. We have a prominent web feature on the homepage, which is Alyssa, and then we have a drop-down menu on every page also that includes Kwame's bucket list. So there's a lot of people who can hit it from there. When we started out, we have a student life section. 20% of the traffic on the student life section was for the blogs, which that's when we said, oh my God, this might be big. And that was, like I said, 5 years ago. And now we do a lot of it via social as well. Obviously, we promote it on our Facebook page. They stream directly to Twitter, which I'm not a big fan of automation, but the appliance we use to do that no longer exists, so we can't unhook it. But like, if it's a really good blog post, I'll retweet it at a different time. But what's also interesting too is some of the students who participate, they're power users of social media as well, and so you can tell when they're promoting it. You'll see like a sudden spike out of someone because they're promoting it in their own social media channels. But our biggest driver out of all of them is probably still Facebook, because that's the biggest of anything. Twitter, and then our website as well. And it varies. When we have heavy incoming student times, I think they will be referring to this a lot. So we'll see it go up October, November, and that type of thing.
So you said Facebook. Are you using the institution's Facebook, or are you using a separate Facebook? What are you using when you post or inform people about the posts?
We are using our institutional Facebook page,
okay,
and highlighting it there. And then we also have an incoming student area where we are highlighting it in there as well, because they're very thirsty for information, and they're some of Alyssa's biggest fans right now.
Okay. And what about you, Jay? How are you getting eyeballs to weareiu.com?
Well, first off, one of the ways we're not getting it to the site is through the institution website. And what I mean by that is we didn't have any links to weareiu.com anywhere on an indiana.edu URL when we got started. It was a brand new site. It was still a work in progress, and so we had to rely on other ways to be able to get traffic to the site. And one of the things that we initially wanted to do was to be able to tap into the networks that all of our student bloggers have, so all of their friends and followers on social media. The platform that we use gives us the ability to let the students link their Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn accounts to their author account on weareiu.com. And so when we approve and publish one of their stories, then it automatically gets pushed out to their personal social media channels for them to share with their friends and followers. And that results in about half the traffic that we get to the site. It's highly organic. It's almost all driven from that. We do get some traffic also from search engines. The way it's set up, it's optimized really well for search engines. About 25% of our traffic comes from that. We were actually pretty surprised to see that amount of traffic, considering it was a brand new URL that didn't exist before February last year. It usually takes a lot longer to get search traffic coming to a site. And we really didn't do any promotion through any recruiting programs or anything like that, through any emails or links on any of the institutions' Facebook and Twitter accounts. We've just started doing that within the last couple months, and we have plans. Now we have all this great content to work with. Now we're working with the admissions and FYE and scholarship folks and even some of the academic recruiting departments to start putting links on their sites and let them push it out through their social media channels and any email marketing campaigns they may have.
So that's really impressive. You started this project with no connections to your primary marketing channel and got a ton of content and then got a ton of traffic out of it through just this organic social awareness.
Yeah, well, when you think about the fact that most of these college students have about 800 Facebook friends. And,
only 800?
I'm sorry, I guess maybe that's 800 followers and 8,000 Facebook friends. But you know, they got it out to their friends and to their followers, and that was really one of the initial objectives when we got the site started. Is we wanted to have the ability to get access to those markets that we may not even be able to do through our normal recruiting methods that we were using. So that was intentional from the beginning, but we were really pleased to see the actual outcome live up to what we were expecting.
That's awesome. Here at Union, what we're doing is we're highlighting posts in admissions emails, the parents' newsletter. We're putting things out on the institution's Facebook and Twitter, but also we're promoting it on www a lot. It's in a bunch of different locations, and you know, what I tried to do with this single blog was create a category structure that relates to our marketing pages, and then I'm going to take the feeds from the categories and feed them onto our marketing pages. So we've got authentic student content along our marketing filtered copy. So I'm trying to promote awareness of Unfiltered by putting it where we already have eyeballs. And you know, I'm definitely seeing spikes in traffic when I put something up in social media, or if we're using one of the email platforms for a newsletter or whatnot. So one of the interesting things is we're talking about students. We're talking about students putting content out there in very visible places that are endorsed by the institution. So you start to think, you know, these are students. They're kids. They're going through college. They're going through the maturation process where they learn to be professionals. So let's talk about approval processes. Tim, do you have an approval process?
I always like to say we approve bloggers, not blog posts, because I researched this a lot before we got in, and everybody pretty much said the same thing. It's like, if you, and I know people who've done this, and it's awful when you have individuals who say, okay, I want to see your blog post first before it goes live. That's saying I don't trust you, and you're not going to get good content out of those people. I essentially will interview them, find out a little bit more about them. If I think that if I get a good feeling on them, you know, more often than not, I am going to hire them. But also it is it's a type of thing where the people who just aren't cut out for it pretty much select themselves out. Like, we'll have people who post a couple times and then stop if they're just not into it. But for a lot of these people, it's part of their portfolio. I had 2 journalism students approach me because they said, you know, we realize that that blogging is going to be part of journalism and part of communication, so they understand that this is going to be good for them. And one of them is now working in a magazine where she's doing social media, and another one is working at a very, very prominent non-governmental organization doing communication. So this was part of their portfolio when they wanted to move on and get a job. And so they realize they take it very, very seriously. And I always tell them, don't forget that, your parents can read this, your professors can read this, future employers can read it. You're going to want to make sure that you're putting stuff out there that can be consumed. And I owe a lot of this to Rachel Rubin, now at Ithaca College. A shout out to Rachel Rubin, because she had blazed a trail at New Pulse with their bloggers, and most of my best ideas I steal from Rachel Rubin anyway. And so I looked at who was doing this well and tried to adapt as much as we could to our own campus.
That's really interesting. I mean, what you said, approve bloggers, not blog posts. Simple, sweet, right to the point, and essentially that's what we're all here about. We're all trying to get student voices, student content, authentic material out there, but obviously with some sort of guidance from us communications professionals and just an awareness and reinforcement of common sense. So what about you, Jay? Do you have an approval process?
Well, I talked a little earlier about the application that they use. I put that term in quotes because essentially there are two questions that they have to answer. I think you guys may have pushed out a link to the form that you can look at through Twitter. But basically what we're looking for is some quality to their answers. They're kind of doing a test blog, if you will, just by simply filling out the form and answering those questions. Most of the students are accepted when they apply, but there's still a process that we have going forward as far as approval goes, where we're moderating all their posts, reviewing them before they're actually approved. So I think it kind of follows along what Tim was saying, but we're using the blog posts to help the students understand what it is that we're looking for them to do. So it's kind of on-the-job training with them. We have a way to give them, we'll give them feedback right through their posts. They understand the standards that are expected of them whenever they start blogging. And so through the process of them submitting posts and us giving them some feedback, they fine-tune the work that they're doing, and we can kind of find out what areas they want to focus on as well. So there is an application. We do approve them, but it's a little less formal, I guess you could say.
Okay. All right. Again, that's really we're both along the same track. I mean, there's just, you want to get authentic materials, so really you have a conversation with your authors, or you reinforce common sense, and it's the same thing up here. We're not approving. They have access to log in to Unfiltered and post their content and publish it, and we've actually had a few controversial posts. And by that I mean there was some criticism of some college offices, and it raised some red flags, but it was nothing slanderous, and it lent credibility to the content. If you have a little bit of negativity mixed in there, it definitely gives anyone viewing it the sense that, wow, the institution isn't whitewashing this sort of thing. So I've definitely reiterated with my bloggers that I don't want them to all feel like they have to be happy-go-lucky posts. I want them to be honest. College is hard. There's going to be some really amazing times, and there's going to be some really rough times. And I want them to feel like they can blog about the rough times just as well as the happy times. As long as they do, if they're going to be critical of something, they do it constructively and well thought out. So I don't want just someone slamming some professor for no reason or some bad service they received. I want them to form their complaint and their issue in a great way. So no bad publicity is necessarily all that terrible.
Well, we had a blogger for 4 years who I always called our authenticity check because he would complain about winter and parking and occasional things. But that's, if you're going to Oswego, you're going to deal with winter. And as someone once said, someone was talking about blogging, and they said no one's ever seen a college where parking is good, where students like the parking. So we can handle that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm in the same boat. It's winter. It's cold. I was walking on campus today. I had full coat on, the hood up, the hat, the scarf. Again, but we talk about in the marketing meetings, we're about, we can't make it seem like this is a frigid environment for a good chunk of the year, but it is a cold environment. It's kind of discouraging to walk across campus. You can have some beautiful winter shots, but it's a lot easier to sell summer and warm.
Yeah.
But there's been plenty of posts on Unfiltered about winter and not wanting to leave dorm rooms and whatnot, and trying to get around, and how you deal with the fact that you don't want to head over to the campus center and delivery and all those sorts of things. So we've talked about where you get the authors, how you get the eyeballs there, or any sort of issues you might have or worries and concerns you might have about what it is these students are putting out there with your sort of pseudo endorsement, because it's your institution brand behind it. So now let's talk about engaging those authors, coaching them, steering them in any particular direction. How do you ensure that you don't just get content, but you get good, effective content for what you want to achieve? Let's go to you, Tim.
Well, what's been good is kind of giving them beats that they're on, or series, I would say. Like we've had 3 blogging series. I mentioned Kwame Bell's Bucket List. Illis Explains It All. And then Heather Casey this semester is doing something called Head to Toe Health with Heather. I think we took the with Heather off because it was too long, but essentially it's health and wellness issues. And she's gone roller derby. She's gone skating with a roller derby team. Our grad assistant, Kevin Graham, who is an excellent filmmaker, normally takes video, is also a professional wrestler on the side. He just won the 2CW Tag Team Championship on Friday, and Heather and a student were there to capture that. She's going to talk about wellness issues and talk to professors and talk to professionals and that type of thing. So part of it is once they have this focus on what they're doing, that helps a lot. But also we'll give feedback. Like I will say, that was great, but I think you can maybe shorten and tighten it a little bit in the future. Why don't you try focusing on so and so? With Kwame and with Heather, to a degree, I serve as executive producer, which is to say we talk about topics, and once in a while I'm gonna have to call someone and say, oh, I've got this blogger who's interested in doing a thing. Can you help out? So to a degree, I'll help them out that way with some of that stuff. But generally speaking, it's like anything else. I teach one class, and the whole idea behind that class or any class is trying to get the most out of students, but also letting them know how they can improve. And the serious ones take it to heart, and those are the ones who become the superstars after a while.
No, I totally get what you're coming from, and it's interesting you play that role of executive producer, because you do, to get good content, you kind of have a sense of what it is the institution is known for, the talking points, what your prospects and their parents want to hear. So you want to regularly engage them, and you want to review the content, and you want to make some suggestions about what you see and just really enhance it.
Sorry to butt in, but one thing we've noticed too from our incoming student groups is we're seeing an interest in things that we don't necessarily think of as stuff that we need to sell a lot. For instance, the Ice Effect synchronized skating team. We have a very popular equestrian team. We have a Del Sarte dance group, and these are the ones this is things that incoming students are talking about with an interest in. And so then I talk to my bloggers and say, hey, does anybody want to cover or talk to some people about this for a blog post? So that informs what we do.
And how are you finding out about that?
We have a closed group for incoming freshmen.
Okay.
So topics that just blow up, like the dance troupe was one. It's like, okay, well, we need to do something on this dance troupe because they're very interested.
And it's the wonderful thing about this new social age is we can find out immediately what our audience is interested in and react to it. And personally, I'm working closely with admissions, and I'm trying to get admissions more engaged in contacting the bloggers, just so that we can stay in touch with that recruitment aspect and make sure that the people visiting campus, talking to the admissions deans, asking questions in our info sessions, are actually, those questions can be translated back to, and the bloggers can engage and cover those topics too. So what about you, Jay? How are you engaging? How are you getting effective content and not just, really 175 different contributors? That's 1,100 stories. That's a lot of content. How are you making sure that you're getting good stuff and not just lots and lots of stuff?
Well, initially we did do some face-to-face training with our first our charter members, so to speak, to help them get an understanding of what we were looking for. But like you say, when we have 100-some students doing this, it's just the whole trying to coordinate when we can have meetings and everything, and remembering that these students are volunteering, that they're not getting paid to show up and spend time sitting in training sessions or anything. So we really capitalize on using digital media. We created a Basecamp site. Basecamp's a type of project management tool. We use Basecamp to share tips with the students, to give them different information that comes across our desk from time to time, and then we actually push out specific content requests. And our primary audience is prospective students, whichever. But so we're looking kind of where they're at in the cycle. Last summer, which is a dead time. Most of the students are not on campus, they're not in classes. But I sent an email out in July asking students to talk about the first weeks of your freshman year. And we got a ton of stories from students talking about welcome week, moving in, what to bring, just all kinds of tips and suggestions, dorm reviews, and just a lot of information specific to that. I'll tap the folks from our different recruiting departments, admissions, scholarship, first-year experience, to find out from them what kind of things that they think would be useful in what they're doing. And again, I push that information out to the bloggers. I use Google Analytics a lot. I actually look at what search terms people are using to find our site, where that's coming from, and then I'll take that list. I basically filter it down, digest it into a way that I can get it to the student bloggers, and then I send it to them, and I'll say, talk about this. Maybe it's student organizations, fraternities and sororities, just different types of topics along the way as I'm seeing them coming along. The other thing I do is I'll talk to specific bloggers, and maybe one of them is a photographer and just wants to do a photo blog. We've had 2 students in particular that just did an awesome job of just taking pictures around campus and just having some awesome pictures. A couple other students wanted to do video blogs, so that's essentially all that they do. 2 girls that are freshmen, we wanted to do like a what's new, what they call What's New IU, where they do a weekly update of events on campus, and they do that as a video, upload it to YouTube, and then put it on our site. And they've been doing that faithfully all school year, every week. So that's the primary way that we do it. I guess the only other resource that we look at is we now have a private Facebook network for admits, and I look at what they're talking about in Facebook. For example, right now they're all talking about housing, and so I've had some student bloggers just submit some stories recently about even more expanded reviews of the different dorms, and picking a roommate. That's a big one that they're asking about. So, do you go random? Do you pick a roommate? Which is the way to go? And I found that the students, all I have to do is throw that out to them, and anywhere from 2 or 3 to a dozen of them will give me some stories within the next couple days.
Okay, so it sounds like both of you guys are regularly engaging with your content contributors. It's necessary to keep the ball rolling, to keep fostering good content, to keep reinforcing good content practices. I'm fortunate that since most of mine are work study, I can say you've got to be in the office
Hmm.
a few hours a week where I can engage them. And some of the biggest things that I have to reinforce is that the primary audience for Unfiltered doesn't know union. So they have to make sure that they provide context when they're talking about this particular thing. If they're talking about a professor or they're talking about some union specific term, they might skip right over it, thinking, well, everyone here knows what that's about. But no, I mean, the people aren't here at union. They need a little more context and awareness, and they might not even necessarily have read your previous posts where they can get a sense of a particular topic or theme. So you might feel like you're repeating yourself, but in essence, that first post about some topic you've talked about many, many times may be the first time someone's seeing it. So you always have to provide a little more detail, a little more context, and then one of the biggest thing, probably the biggest thing, is proofread. We especially if we're going to be putting promoting this stuff in parents' newsletters or on admissions or on our Facebook. We want the copy to be spell checked and grammatically correct. We are, after all, representing a very prestigious educational institution, so we want the world to think that our students can write. So sometimes they rush. Blogging is casual, but again, we encourage them to go back and proofread. And when I've caught stuff, I've said, go back and look at your thing because I want to promote it. But I think you want to take another look at it before I point it out there to 1,000 people. So recently I brought a bunch of them together for a lunch, and we just talked about some various topics, again, reinforcing some common ideas, way to enhance content, and then gave them a bulleted list of just some brainstorming ideas if they were stuck. And interestingly enough, we had a writer join that meeting, one of our writers from communication, and she had this idea of using the list. And if you're stuck, then come up with some sort of list idea. So it could be 5 things you learned about union this week, the 4 books on your nightstand that you're reading, the 7 great places in Schenectady that you should hear about. So it's an interesting way of thinking about blog content ideas and creating a fun and different approach to that. So now I'm trying to engage a few people and think, well, come up with a list, come up with your own list, just as a way so it's not all prose and whatnot. So that's one of the ideas that's out there, and it's constantly evolving. But you do have to engage. And it's interesting. All 3 of us are definitely talking with our bloggers on a regular basis, particularly our regular contributors, which leads into the next question: how much time and resources are going into both sustaining and maintaining this effort here? So, Tim, how much time, how much resources are going into this?
Well, the blogs themselves, it becomes minimal once they're up and running. I do want to touch on something that Jay mentioned, which is another way we're expanding student content. You talk about residence halls, or dorms, as students call them. And what we decided to do was have each, and speaking of lists, we are working with Res Life to get 1 student from each residence hall to say 3 things I love about Hart Hall, 3 things I love about Johnson Hall. So 13 more faces are going to appear as part of this effort. We're interviewing students about admitted student days, like current tour guides. So we have a lot of one-off, I guess you'd call them video bloggers or correspondents. Those take, every time there's an idea, there's staff time there. But once it's up and running, it's not quite as much. A couple of the student bloggers are on my social media team, which meets for about an hour a week. But they also do other things on Facebook and on Twitter and Instagram and now Tumblr. So they have other responsibilities outside of their blog, but all that stuff that they're doing is just giving them ideas and more feedback. So it's usually a few hours for them. The work study, I think, is 4 to 5 hours a week. The interns are about 8 to 10 hours a week. So they'll have a lot of stuff to put into that time. And I say, I know you want to do these things quickly, but take your time too. Don't rush. Don't hurry it, because you want to do the best job you can. If it's a good week, about all I have to do is look and say, hey, there's a new blog and it's awesome. Those weeks don't happen very often, but they have sometimes. But generally speaking, it's about a couple hours a week that I have to put into this, and the payback, for the college and for the students participating, I think is just so much greater.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like you don't feel like it's all that much effort, and you're getting a ton of content. Is that correct?
That's what I tell myself. No, the effort's really in the setup, in getting the bloggers and that type of thing. But it's the type of thing, once you get it in motion, I think it becomes in large part self-sustaining throughout the semester. I might have to help them out with some projects or give them ideas. But I'm lucky in that I have a lot of students. Once I wind them up and let them go, then they're going and going.
And that's a great message, because a lot of higher ed is just, I'm already overwhelmed. I'm constantly being asked to do more with less. So can a project like this, where you're thinking about trying to manage student content contributors, be a reasonable resource, a reasonable effort to consider? And obviously there's always project inception, but it sounds like once you get the ball rolling, you kind of have this self-sustaining content producer of valuable material. So what about you, Jay? I mean, you've got it sounds like you went with a very well thought out project plan, going off to set something up with a vendor and whatnot. So what is this effort costing you?
What is it costing us?
Well, I mean, not necessarily. I don't want you necessarily to talk about money, but I mean, cost. Time is money.
Yeah.
It's often forgotten in higher ed, but time is definitely money.
Yeah. The platform we use, their company's called Compendium, and there are there's a lot of functionality built into it, which does make it efficient from a time standpoint. We basically are moderating posts every single day, so the students submit their posts, and they all are aggregated and I just pop up a web interface and take a look at them. I review them. I'll do spell checks and things like that, make sure everything's following the terms of use of the site and so on and so forth. That takes me usually less than an hour a day. If there's quite a volume, it may take me a little bit more than that, but that really doesn't take very much time. For us, what takes a larger percentage of our time is redistributing and repurposing the content. So after we have all these stories on the site, for example, just this afternoon, one of the folks in our admissions department sent me an email asking about what kind of content we had that they could use for red carpet days. So campus visits are starting to get cranked up big time right now. And she wanted to know what kind of stories we have on weareiu.com for that. I went through and did a bunch of, we have a lot of categories, so I just went through those categories and I looked at different stories and I did some searches. Our students love to eat, obviously, because after I looked at it, there were like 15 to 20 different posts about where to eat in Bloomington. There were probably a dozen posts or so that were really good that would be useful for students coming for the weekend with their parents on things to do in and around Bloomington. So we spend a fair amount of our time repurposing and redistributing the content after we have it on the site. That's the majority of our time. We have a Twitter account, a weareiu.com Twitter account. It's been growing like crazy, or I think it's been growing like crazy. And we use an app called Buffer to queue up tweets. And I'll probably spend a couple hours, 2 days a week, just queuing all those up so that it's dripping tweets out, throughout the day, every day, 7 days a week, and that's probably where we spend most of our time. From a student's perspective, typically they spend an hour to two maybe per post if they're doing a video blog. I know it takes them a little bit longer than that. Our intern, our scholar that's working with us, she writes some pretty expansive posts. She really drills in, does stuff on researching a topic and everything. She does at least one video post every week, and so she's spending about, I guess, 3 to 4 hours on each one of hers that she does. But that's pretty much it.
Okay, so Jay, you said you went out and partnered with this vendor Compendium.
Mm-hmm.
So your institution actually allocated financial resources to get this
Mm-hmm.
project up and running, right?
Yes.
Now, Tim, what are you using?
We use WordPress that we end up customizing. So my budget usually resembles a very round figure, a very single round figure on these things. So that was in keeping with the budget that I had.
Okay, and Unfiltered is also using WordPress, so the actual dollar amount is zero for us as well. But that doesn't mean that you're not putting effort in with all the time. It's just it's great to know that an institution thought that this material was so valuable that they were going to invest financial resources at the outset to create this amazing destination. And it definitely seems like it's paid off bigger and faster than you thought. Would you say, Jay?
Absolutely. And just a quick response as far as you guys talking about WordPress. I mean, we looked at WordPress as well. WordPress is a great CMS. We were giving serious consideration to that. Compendium is a content marketing hub. There is a distinction. So they both have CMS foundations, so to speak, but there's a lot of functionality within Compendium that is giving us some economies of scale, gives us the ability to have literally hundreds of student bloggers if we need to, and it's still pretty efficient. I'm not having to do a whole lot of work internally to tweak that or customize it or anything. So there is that trade-off where you look at it and say, what kind of budget do I have? How do I allocate that? It was a tough sell to get approval for this, but I'm really glad we went through the process of getting it done because it's just an awesome tool.
Yeah, I mean, looking around We Are IU, it's quick to see that there is a lot of features that are working there just on the front end from the visitor's perspective. A lot of functionality and content integration. So I'm sure there's a lot of power, but also consequently a lot of ease that you're getting in terms of managing 175 different authors and so much content. So it's a good feeling to know that an institution thought this is worth investing in.
Right.
From our perspective, our first year basically it was low staff time. I picked a bunch of people that said they wanted to do blogging. I said, go to WordPress, set up your own blog. Gave them a little bit of a pep talk, and off they went. And then what we did was we did a little development and sucked their content into www and just fed it on an ongoing basis. But otherwise, they ran their own blogs on a free WordPress website. So I wasn't really that engaged. I wasn't, watching over what they were producing. And every month I asked, what's your traffic? And the numbers were amazing. They were sharing their stuff on their Facebooks. We were, bringing it into www. So, after a year, we saw almost no effort, zero cost, produce all this awareness. So it definitely seemed like we should up the ante. We should invest more. And so we brought them all into an internal WordPress blog and started building that out. And I'm learning WordPress, learning plugins and all the fun that can come with that, and trying out new stuff. But I definitely like how I've got a single destination to direct visitors to, because otherwise we were still going with the route we were going before. I'd have 12 different URLs to send visitors to. I'd have 12 different blogs, and it's too much. Your prospect's attention span, they're not going to jump around to 12 different blogs and get a sense of what's going on and what each 12 different voices are saying about classes and professors and dorms and dining. So I'm definitely spending a lot more time this year creating this destination, but I think it also shows through what it is now versus what it was a year ago. But again, year one, incredibly easy. Start, have your students create free WordPress accounts, start blogging using RSS, pull it into your website, and you've got something up and running relatively quickly. If you just want to test the waters and see, is this something that's valuable to the institution? So there's one thing that I really liked about the We Are You homepage, and it was sort of it's what I liked somehow to get going on Unfiltered as well, is that you organize content by topics.
Right.
So you have campus life, you have academics, you have traditions. I really love that because traditionally a blog is primarily focused on chronology. What is it they're saying now? What is it they're saying now?
Right.
But your audience isn't following that, religiously, where they're checking all the time. You get new people checking all the time. So it's a great way, I think, to feature some particular key talking points, key concepts that you want to reinforce by bringing out content on those topics. Can you talk about how you sort of developed that strategy?
Sure. So this is in essence the second generation design of the site. It looked a lot different when we got started. And we were obviously allocating most of our time and energy just to get the thing up and running and make sure everything was working properly. And then basically after sometime last summer, we had some time to go back and look at it and say, okay, let's take a long hard look at the actual design and layout of the site. We got some feedback. We did some. My background is in user experience design, so I started doing some research, getting students to give us their feedback about what they liked about the site, what they didn't like about it, and then I also was asking them, what other sites they like, and when we started seeing the layouts of some of these other sites that they go to, even sites like Mashable. Okay, Mashable is a CMS, but when you look at the way it's laid out, you start seeing all these different things going on there that aren't your plain vanilla CMS. So we got some folks together from different departments within OEM. We got some students to look at it. We built out a couple different widgets. We threw them up on a whiteboard and just kind of wireframed different designs. And we came up pretty much with this layout. It's the nice thing about this is it's really easy for me to tag a post. So those must reads that you see on the homepage, I just tag the post whenever it gets approved, and then it goes into that category. And I'm just making sure we keep getting fresh content in each one of those categories. We also have something, I don't know if you noticed, but if you click on one of the blogs and look at it, we have something across the top of every page when you go into a blog post on our most popular posts. So we'll tag those as well, and so that is in essence pointing the visitors to stuff that there's a high likelihood that they'll be interested in looking at beyond the actual post that they're reading. And then we even use something down at the bottom from it's a widget from a third-party vendor called You Might Also Like. You've probably seen this on a bunch of different sites, where it queues up 4 or 5 different blog posts that are related to the one that they were just reading. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the in a nutshell what we went through when we were doing the redesign.
And what about you, Tim? Do you have any strategies for promoting particular topics of content? Some key points that you want to hit home on?
Well, I know we do encourage people to tag and that type of thing. To a degree, it's sometimes selective because we don't have anything quite as complicated. Obviously we have WordPress, and so it's kind of a flowing river. But if we see something good, we make sure that we hit it in our social media channels a lot and find other ways to promote it, because like sometimes people will just hit one out of the park, and I said, well, that's got to be read and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we do our best, and sometimes something really good gets a lot of attention, and sometimes it doesn't. Just for all of our efforts, because it's kind of, for all we think we know, it's still kind of a guessing game.
All right. Well, I mean, since we got a little bit of a rough start, I'm going to skip ahead and just ask you guys, what are your plans? What is it you hope to go? Where you hope to go with this project? Things that are currently in the works, or anything pie in the sky? What about you, Tim? What are you hoping to do with now 5 years in? What does year 6 look like, or year 7?
Well, right now, this year has exceeded our expectations so much. I really want to make sure we can sustain it, because Heather is graduating, Kwame's graduated. He's still working. He's still working on some blog posts, and then Kevin Graham, who's my videographer, is graduating too. I feel like I should be talking to professors about failing them in some classes or something, but I guess that's unethical. But generally speaking, it's trying to find the next level. It's almost like managing a college sports team. You're trying to build some depth. You're trying to even look at during the college recruiting session, trying to look at the people who are active and have interesting things to say, and so trying to make sure that there's a good group coming up underneath them. And so I've already been identifying some people who might be good. Because I know that this year was so good, just to recreate that one would be my dream. But going on from there, obviously, more video, more photo, multimedia, interactive is really where it's at. And so I've been very happy the fact that we've actually been addressing those prospective student questions and prospective student concerns in a big way, as much as we have with the resources that's pretty much all student driven. So I mean, I'd be happy with this for another year or two, although I know at some point, because I'm kind of perfectionist, kind of competitive, that I'm going to want to improve on it. But part of it is too, once you lay that groundwork of success, people see what can happen, and they're going to want to join in and be part of the team.
Mm-hmm. So what about you, Jay? Well, you're only at the 1-year anniversary, and you developed a very comprehensive platform, and then had a great success in getting content within its inception. So you must be full of ideas about where you want to take it now.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I mean, when we got started, we didn't really have the site integrated into any of our existing recruiting campaigns or on indiana.edu web pages anywhere. So we are definitely going to be integrating that into our existing strategies, links in emails, feeds on web pages, sharing through other social media channels besides the We Are IU channel. But what I'm really excited about, it, to be honest, is expanding We Are IU beyond our what we set as being our primary target audience. I was following the back channel on Twitter, and people were asking about current students. Well, current students are actually one of our biggest groups of visitors. I mean, when we look at Google Analytics and see where the traffic's coming from, a lot of it's coming from Bloomington. It's not a majority, but a good number of visits to the site are coming from Bloomington. And I know I'm not the one that's just visiting the site all the time. So, we're looking at how we can integrate this into things beyond recruitment. We've been talking to the folks in student activities to see what they can start doing through different student organizations. We've been talking to several different academic departments on campus. We just started working on doing a dedicated author account for a project that the Office of First Year Experience is doing, where they're going to be capturing all of these reflective stories on a project that that they're doing. It's called Trading Laces, and it's basically where where you're walking in somebody else's shoes, and then they're writing a reflection piece about that. And we have a meeting set up then. Also, this is crazy, hard to think about doing this, but we're going to be talking to the Alumni Association. So to see about alumni sharing their stories about their experience at IU and how we can expand it basically all the way across. You hear about intentions to do this, but I haven't seen, a whole lot of examples of projects where it's going from prospective students all the way through to alumni. And we have the potential to do that with weareiu.com. And so we're having some conversations right now with folks in the Alumni Association and over at the foundation to see what we might be able to do to integrate stories into weareiu.com for their target audiences as well.
So it sounds like, all three of us are managing these destinations that, when all is said and done, they could become larger than our institution websites with as much content that's getting produced. And that's just kind of impressive when you sit back and think about it, is these projects can rival what your institution website has become after 11, 12, 15, 20 years. You're going to have more material in these other side destinations, these secondary projects to manage and foster and create. For me, what I'm looking forward to doing, what I've been hoping to do since we brought everyone into a single blog, is take our categories, which relate to the common topics that prospects and recruits are looking for, and integrating those into our pages on www. One thing I want to do is find an Instagram widget, because I know a lot of our bloggers are using Instagram and just have a photo feed. Rather than having blog posts that are just photos, I'd rather just have an ongoing photo feed on Unfiltered. We just got a YouTube channel set up where they can host the video content for their blogs, and I'm definitely pushing them to use their smartphones, take some video. It doesn't have to be scary. Video is not frightening. I'm not expecting movie studio productions and whatnot. That's definitely where I want to go. Definitely increasing the multimedia, like you said, Tim. And I love the way that you're presenting the material on weareiu.com with those topics and the blog posts related to those topics. So I think it gives visitors a way to dive into content rather than chronology of the thoughts of a bunch of different authors. I'm finding a new theme that's going to work for that is an investment in time that definitely something I want to do down the line. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap up. We've had an amazing hour plus, but I definitely want to thank you guys for joining me, for talking about your projects. 5 years plus, you've had a lot of success, Tim. 1 year in, you've got this great platform, this really fertile ground, and so much to grow upon, Jay. It's both really impressive. Obviously, you've seen a lot of return on the investment from this blogging content idea. And I really appreciate you spending time tonight and talking with me and with the rest of the people who joined us tonight. So.
My pleasure. It's fun.
Now, next week on Higher Ed Live, we'll be discussing the mobile evolution at the University of Vermont with your host, Brent Passmore, and guest Tatiana Salcido. If you're in the process of taking your site to tablets and mobile devices with mobile sites or responsive design, this is the show for you. Thanks for joining us tonight. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Higher Ed Live. I enjoyed being your guest host. Please tweet me at Jason W. Slater or connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can continue the conversation. Good night.